Welcome to the Coast Podcast. I'm Emilie, a virtual assistant agency owner who left Amazon in 2019 to build my dream.
And I'm Whitney, a freelance writer and communications consultant who never felt at home in a cube farm.
We didn't see many people paving their own ways like we decided to, so we created this podcast to talk to others who were brave enough to pick a different path. Creatives, entrepreneurs, people doing their careers and their lives their way.
Join us as we learn from them, get inspired, and show you beautiful paths less traveled.
Not every road leads to the coast, but the ones that do come with a great view.
Welcome back to the Coast Podcast. I'm Whitney Popa, and I own a communications consultancy in Edmonds, Washington, where I write things for small businesses. And we spend this time talking to people who inspire us, who have been out on their own and waging their own way.
And my name's Emilie Given. I own a virtual assistant agency in Lynnwood, Washington, very close to Whitney. And today we have the pleasure of speaking with Noemi Sparks, who is one of my oldest and dearest friend. I met her when I was 9 years old, and she owns a business where she coaches, and I'm going to let her talk more about that. So Noemi, feel free to introduce yourself.
Hey, Whitney, Emilie, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be so much fun. So as Emilie was saying, I have a business where I work with women to help improve their mental wellness in a few different capacities. So I do coaching. I'm also a yoga teacher, and I also work with plant medicine. So more specifically, I work with certain medicines that help to improve mental wellness and to reduce stress. And a new thing that I've been doing starting this summer was working with the women to help improve their menstrual health as well. So that's been a lot of fun doing these different things that all really converge in one area, which is improving overall of mental health.
Yeah, so that's why I couldn't really say it in like one sentence. Like, it's so complex, but also like so multifaceted and amazing what you're doing. So, but that's how you like holistic health, right? Like mental health. So, what did you do before you did this? What is your career background in?
Yeah, so I have a background in tech. I did social media for different tech companies for when I left college all the way until earlier this year, actually. And I still freelance some because, once you know a certain field, it becomes really easy to just do that as you're following more entrepreneurial ventures. Because I know a lot of us, started with a different work or a different background and are now slowly shifting into doing our heart's work full time. So for me, there was a little bit of an overlap, but I was doing social media for the most part and some community management for tech companies that did a lot of kind of boring-ish things like data integration and ed tech and things like that are great and really do serve the world, but just weren't where my heart's mission was at the time. So until February of this year, I was doing social media and employee engagement for this company that was undergoing some changes. And it had been on my heart for a long time to do something else full time to really help women get where I was while working with these kinds of natural medicine. So by that, I mean, doing mindset work and also physical work. But the universe was, keeping me there for a little bit to be able to support myself as I was exploring new ventures until I really figured out what I wanted to do last October, actually. So there was a few months of overlap, but eventually the universe was like, okay, it's time. It's time for you to go do your own thing full time. And in February, I got the word that it was my time to step into doing my own thing full time. So since then, I've been doing coaching mainly with yoga teaching and then some plant medicine consultations as I go.
Amazing. I also do social media as part of as part of my consultancy. I have a history there, so I get it. And I'm also curious about the mental strain that might have put on you, or like mental health strain.
Yeah, there was definitely a long time where I was like floating between two worlds of like being the professional and also being the like crunchy hippie who just wants to be outside all day naked. So there was definitely
Yeah.
a yeah, right. It's hard to mix those two when there at some point was a clear distinction between them. So for me, I think what really helped was being during like working from home when the pandemic hit and when I could really start growing my roots again, reconnecting with that spiritual side of myself and not having to go into the office all the time. So that was a really nice kind of break between the two. And I could start, stepping into being my authentic self in that work capacity, but still didn't have to do it in the office. So that was really nice to get to do that for a while until, I was able to only do that full time. And I know that people started noticing it. Like they started wondering, like, hey, like, what have you been up to? Like, what's been going on? And the nice thing was that they were so open to learning why I was feeling so much better and why my mental health was so much better, even though it was at the height of the pandemic, or at least the height of that uncertainty during last summer. And we really didn't know what was going on. Not that we do now either, but at that time, it just felt a little bit more severe. Um, anyway, I digress. So I ended up being able to teach this mindset and mindfulness work while I was at my corporate or in my corporate career too. So I got to do like a few sessions here and there of like mindfulness stuff a week and just opened it up to the entire company to come and join us. And that was a really great way to practice my authentic voice in a professional capacity. And that's why now, a year later, I can still go and freelance occasionally and not lose that shine that came out or that I was able to grow last year.
And I think it's so beautiful how you've, even when you were in corporate, how you did such a great job of like integrating that true authentic stuff. Like I would notice that you were sharing tidbits on LinkedIn about mindfulness and like you really took mental health seriously and you like tried to spread it in the corporate world as well. And I so thought that was just amazing that you were doing that and like trying to really make a change, like from typical corporate.
Hmm.
Like it was very, very noticeable on my part.
Thank you. That means a lot that you say that because I know you shine so brightly on LinkedIn that you've always been like a really good example for me. So I just appreciate you saying that so much.
Oh, thank you. You should follow Whitney.
Oh,
She's like amazing. She is. She's like my role
I
model.
I don't
And
do anything. Uh, I don't do anything on LinkedIn.
yes, you do. Yes, you
Mm,
do. Go look at her
it's
link.
like,
She totally does.
I mean, Noemi, you're gonna understand this. I can't add more accounts to my Instagram toggle. So I have to really prioritize where I spend my time online, and LinkedIn is just not a priority for me. So sometimes I show up there, but like for me, like mental health wise, I've had to turn off all notifications on pretty much every social platform. I've had to make it hard for myself to get to them, hiding them in folders so that I'm not like checking a lot. And I still do. And the line between like, you know, posting for a client and then just checking in with the feed or DMs or whatever is a blurry one. So
Mhm.
I've really had to take a lot of steps, and I've been working a ton on mental health and herbalism and all sorts of stuff that you're doing too. So I'm excited to hear about how you're integrating all of those together and helping women really understand the flow of their bodies and how all of that is connected to mental wellness as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So when it really comes down to it, mental health and menstrual health, and I think a lot of what we're all dealing with, men and women, and anyone who identifies as anything, um, is stress. Like everything, when it really boils down to it, all of our illness is because of stress.
Mm-hmm.
So stress, resentment, criticism, fear, and anger. These are the things that really fuel any kind of illness. And the way that I really got into, stepping into balance was through cannabis, honestly, because I started smoking when I was in my early 20s to help with sleep because I was working overnight at a very popular coffee shop. And I found that I couldn't sleep without some kind of help. So I started like talking to doctors, and they put me on some like pretty serious meds. And I knew that that was not good for me. Like I could feel it in my body that that was not, serving my soul, my body, my mind, any of it. So I started talking to friends, and they were like, "You should smoke some weed." And the funny thing is, like during high school, I was straight edge. Like I wore the X's. Like I was a skateboarder, hardcore. Like no alcohol, no drugs, no cigarettes, no promiscuous sex, nothing like that. But I had a shift. I had a change. I realized that I was being a judgmental little bitch, and I didn't want to be that person anymore. So I wanted to try new
My
things.
God, we are so similar. Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like when in our formative years,
Yeah.
we like hold on to these identities and this like categorization of what we're supposed to be like, and then anyone who's unlike us, we are immediately like judging them and whatever, and all this like just shitty stuff, and trying to hold
Mhm.
on to this sense of self that really I don't think serves us in general. That ego is not something that is good for us. And so when I was able to like really look inward and see what I needed, and I needed to fucking sleep, that was when I started trying
Mhm.
new stuff, and I started using cannabis, and then started learning about other plants that also help physically reduce stress. So in cannabis and in a lot of plants that we see often, like lavender and clary sage, it's the terpenes that really help relax us, and that's what got me interested, was the science behind it. Why is it that these plants that are so different still affect us the same way? And that was what got me curious. And I started working with different things like ashwagandha and kava, and eventually kratom, and of course some psychedelic stupid that was a little bit down the road, but just trying to find things that helped make me feel normal and balanced without having to go to pharmaceuticals. So that's where
Mhm.
I was for a really long time. And what got me into wanting to share that was when I put the pieces together of what helped me feel good in my body, mind, and spirit. And a big like catharsis, or I guess point of change for me was when I integrated cannabis and yoga. When I was like, okay, I feel good in my body. I'm allowing my mind to be here fully in the present, not thinking about the traffic that was just that I was just dealing with to get to the yoga studio, and not thinking about that report that I needed to write later. But I was fully in the moment, and cannabis was what helped get me there. That connection of cannabis and yoga at once, and that was when I was like, I need to share this with everyone. And that's what started that path to get me to becoming a yoga teacher, was wanting to teach this style, a very specific style called Ganja yoga, which is a restorative version of yoga. And then moving into that, that was around the time the pandemic started. I was teaching Ganja yoga, and then I realized that I needed to do this in a larger capacity. Like one class a week is great, but that's not how we see transformation, right? It's about really holding
Mhm.
someone's hand while they stick to these wellness habits of using plants medicinally, of connecting with yourself, of this self awareness, and tuning in with what makes you feel good, where you want to be, and deciding that you are the one who's responsible for how you feel. So that doesn't come from just one yoga class a week. That comes from sticking with it for at least, I think, honestly, I think it's at least 6 weeks before you see the real shift. Like some shifts happen in the in between of like noticing that you're sleeping better, noticing that you're not overthinking, that your stomach doesn't hurt all the time. These little things, but it isn't until those 6 weeks when you really feel like, oh fuck, I'm in charge, and that's when the beauty happens. And I'm getting goosebumps right now just thinking about how it's been with my own coaching clients, just seeing that change and really like knowing that they now feel in charge. That is, I think, where the real magic happens.
Whitney, I think she just said our graphic, her title graphic. Oh fuck, I'm in charge. There it is.
I'll do it.
I love ashwagandha. It's the only one especially in the moon juice formulation of soooo. It's the only supplement that I've taken where I actually felt it in my body really immediately, to the point where, as they say, it helps with your sex drive too. My husband was like, take it all, take it every day. I love you on this stuff. It's so funny that he's like, I don't care how much it costs, keep buying it. And I've I've dabbled with kava. It hasn't really, I've used it for sleep mostly. And then there's an apothecary up here in Linwood that I got some from her too, just to mix into drinks and stuff. And she said it's one of those that builds on itself over time and stays in your body. And I haven't really stuck with it, to be honest, because it tasted kind of weird and it took a while to mix in. But I'm curious to dig into that. And also, my question about cannabis, though, is I was always straight edge. So my mom was the we moved to Olympia when I was 4 because my mom was the director of safe and drug-free schools for the state of Washington. So I could go one of two ways, right? I could be like the kid who rebels against my mom, or I could be just a square. And I was the one in high school and middle school being like, you guys are so bad. Look at what you're doing to your liver. If they were out partying and all of that stuff. Like, I was just a judgy little mofo, like you said. And with cannabis, after that, my mom wouldn't even let me wear hemp necklaces. She was like, these support the drug lords. Like, we would go to Afterthoughts in the mall, remember? And I wasn't even allowed to get the hemp necklaces because of all of that. She's turned the page too. She's the one who gives me kava kava, and we share our ashwagandha and all of that. But ever since I've come around to dabbling in those things, I cannot smoke it. I
I
don't
can't either.
put anything in my body through the lungs that way. I am kind of intrigued by edibles, but I find them wavy. So I haven't found something that really gets me present. So I'm like, my question is around like, when you're helping clients and prescribing things to them, is it you find it best like they smoke and then they do yoga, or like what does that process look like for them?
So when it comes to using cannabis for yoga, I highly recommend exploring cannabis on your own before bringing it to your mat.
Got it.
Right. You can't like get completely baked and then try to do yoga.
That being said, you can use like CBD, which doesn't bind to the receptors in your brain. That's why you don't really feel it there. So
I love CBD.
You're the first person who ever told me about CBD. So yeah, that's how I was asking her about it because I'm like, you're the weed expert. Like,
Yeah.
tell me all about this stuff. And she totally like took me on a trip. Not like that, but
I wish.
she told me. Can you imagine?
Yes.
I think Emily should trip, actually.
Okay. I have talked about this multiple times. My husband and I never did like any drugs because I have like a long history with my birth mom and whatever. Too scared of that shit. But I was like, it just seems so hard logistically now. Like, you have to get a babysitter overnight. Like, you have to like plan out all of these things and like find out where to get it. Like, I don't know, it just doesn't seem worth it to me. Anyway, you're the first person who told me about CBD, and I remember like specifically like asking about Billy's back pain and then like texting you all these things like, oh, what should I try? And you told me to try like CBD balm or whatever, and it helped him. He's skeptical, but it's fine.
Well, cannabis and using it intentionally. And I totally understand that it doesn't vibe with everyone. And the thing to know is that, one, with regulation now, like there's so many different kinds of products out there that just because you may have like smoked a bag in high school and it didn't feel good doesn't mean that what you're getting now will make you feel the same way. Because there's so many different things from the terpene compounds, so the kind of essential oils that are in them that give its flavor and its smell, those have different effects, and so do the cannabinoids in it. So cannabinoids are things like THC and CBD, which physically affect your body in different ways. But that being said, like smoking is on its way out. Some people still really love to smoke a J or a bong or whatever, but there are so many different ways to ingest nowadays that if like bringing it in through your lungs doesn't make you comfortable, you don't need to do it that way. It's really just about what effect you want because it does enhance libido and reduce stress if that's an effect you're going for, especially when you use it topically, like as a lube. It's amazing. If you haven't tried it yet,
What?
yes,
I've
Lube?
heard that. Yeah.
cannabis as lube is a game changer.
Okay, but like, is it liquid? You're not like rubbing leaves on your.
No, you take a nug and you just rub it all over your vulva. No, I'm kidding. It is
I'm like, what?
no, it's just like any kind of lube. It's like a cream or a salve. I don't know if you ever got
Emily,
those.
they make lubes now. I
Yeah,
mean,
like I feel
go
like
to
I
the
have.
pot shop. The lube will be there.
Yes,
Interesting.
or it's the same like little one. You know what? Actually, I have some at home. I'll send both of you one because it's what I use. It's so
Yes.
easy. It's like 10 minutes before you want to get busy, alone or not. Uh, just put it on, and then it'll bring like or help the blood flow go to that area, so that you start
Interesting.
externally feeling turned on before you're actually putting hand to equipment.
Oh, my
Interesting.
husband is gonna be so excited about this episode.
um, just real quick about kava. So I love using it instead of alcohol. So instead of wine, but then
Mhm.
like I would recommend getting
Yeah.
either some at the store, like a tincture that you can just put in some kind of ideally citrusy drink, so you don't taste it as much because it does have that kind of like tongue numbingness that isn't the best.
Yeah.
But it just really depends on what you like. Like wine is nice sometimes too, but sometimes it's nice to go something that won't leave you potentially hungover.
The supplement I got from Carly yesterday has it in it, and it's like fruit punch flavored, and it tastes delicious. It's called Relax Max.
Nice.
But she just gave me
Yeah.
2 scoops in the office, and it was sweet. Yeah, good.
Nice.
The one that I have is a powder that I stirred into orange juice, and she was telling me because it's from a pepper plant, there's that residual kind of peppery hot taste in some of it.
Mm-hmm.
And in that one, that's so it was like peppery orange juice and like you said, the tongue numbing thing. And I just was like, ugh, this is a lot of work for something that doesn't taste that great.
Yeah. I mean, that's how I feel about alcohol. That's why I switched to this stuff instead.
Yeah. And I know that it's big in Polynesian culture too, where they use it instead of alcohol. Like that's what they use to party.
Yeah, they use it in ceremony in larger doses. It can be kind of hallucinogenic, but in like much, much larger doses. So yeah, I mean, it's very popular where I am in Northern California, up in hippie central. We have places where they have like kava bars where you can get different kinds of kava drinks and maca and kratom and
Oh.
like medicinal mushrooms, not magic mushrooms yet. But yeah, it's getting more and more popular to just use these kinds of plants in more of a recreational setting than just for health.
Are you mixing things for people? Are you giving people like your own formulas?
No, I'm a DoTerra advocate, so I have some essential oil blends, especially with the women I work with menstrual irregularities. I always send like a blend or 4 different blends for the different menstrual phases or your hormone phases. But other than that, I don't make anything to ingest.
Let's talk about the menstrual stuff. So, was this spurred by you noticing your own menstrual like irregularities or it's such a big conversation. I wouldn't say it's triggering for me, but it gets me hype because um I've been reading a lot about it. I have a lot of books right now that I'm reading about like our cultural conditioning, patriarchy, and like the silencing of women, women's health, especially like the fact that there is more research on postpartum in men because there are more male scientists and um, you know our own period health, especially like related to the vaccine too. I shared that it messed up my period, and I'm not saying that I'm not encouraging people one way or the other, but I think it's worth noting because so many women are silent about that stuff, not only because they get blown off, but because we've been so conditioned to like,
Ew, don't talk about your period.
Mhm.
yeah, like so many things related to it. So I want to know all about like your history with even deciding to go after like this part of your business of like helping women with their menstrual health, because I think that's so important and we're so shamed for it.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So your period is your fifth vital sign, and we don't talk about it enough. I mean, I think there's definitely like a resurgence now of talking about, wellness and sexual health and pleasure and all the things, but when it comes down to period stuff, like that just needs to be a basic thing that we as women know affects our wellness overall. And it's so tied to how we experience stress that that's something that I feel like we need to talk more about, as how it relates to the vaccine too. And like full disclosure, that's the reason why I didn't get the shot for the longest time. We actually have our appointment for next week, but I chose not to because I didn't really understand how it affects our menstrual health. And talking with so many women, a lot of women like you, Whitney, said that it changed their menstrual cycle. And the more I dug into it, the more I came to understand that it's because of how it affects your immune response.
Right.
So, yeah, so it's doing something to your immune system. And obviously, I'm not a vaccine expert, I'm just a researcher on period health. And so, because it affects your immune response, that then is telling your body that it needs to prioritize survival over all other functions. So, over sleep, over arousal and libido, over your like reproductive function, and even over like gut health, right? Like it's putting
Mm-hmm.
all of its eggs into that one basket of you surviving. So that's why your menstrual cycle can change. It doesn't for everyone. Everyone's immune response is different. And that's why everyone needs to decide for themselves if they want to get it or not. So yeah, it's definitely one of those things that I've put a lot of care into, because when I quit birth control in 2017, I realized that there was a lot going on that I didn't realize was attributed to my reproductive health, because I was on the pill for about 10 years. And one thing that I
Same.
didn't, yeah, one
15.
thing, 15, yeah, long time, right? And the one
Mm-hmm.
thing that they don't tell you is that while you're on your period, you're never actually ovulating, nor are you
Mm-hmm.
ever actually getting your period.
Yes.
So you're not ever experiencing that full expression of your hormone cycle. And that means that there's a bunch of, you can be having a bunch of symptoms that are actually pointing to other issues, usually dealing with stress and gut health, that we just think isn't an issue because we're hiding or we're masking all of those symptoms with the birth control. So yeah. So what happened with me was I stopped taking the pill, and then I got hormonal. I was like all over the place, and I was like, oh, it must be because I'm going through a breakup, which was also happening at the time, but I was also going through a spiritual awakening, and my body was also trying to reset itself. So all this stuff was going on. Like my digestive system was all over the place. I couldn't sleep very well. My hair started falling out. I was all like zitty, all sorts of acne issues, and I started taking them piece by piece because I didn't realize it had to do with quitting birth control. So I didn't realize that these were all symptoms of post birth control symptom. They were post birth control symptoms, something like that. Syndrome, post birth control syndrome. There it is. So I didn't realize that they all had to do with that. I thought they were all individual things. So I started taking ashwagandha to help with my hair, and then I noticed that helped almost right away, like within a couple of weeks. And then I noticed I was sleeping better, my skin was looking better. And just started these other kinds of smaller habits to get my health back, until I realized that it all had to do with my stress levels and with how my hormones were expressing. And I didn't really do anything until I think it was like 2019, where I was in a relationship again. I was like, oh, I should try the pill again, and that did not go well. Yeah, that really spiked my mental, I don't want to say illness necessarily, but it made me feel like I was in a very different place. Like there was a very deep disconnect between my mind and body, which is often the issue with mental health issues, right? Is you feel like you're in danger, but you're actually not. And that's where I was for a long time, until I was like, I need to quit this because I want to feel like how I was feeling before. So I decided to put together what helped me get to that state before I tried the pill again. And then I started sharing that incrementally with women that I was working with my yoga teaching bit or my as a yoga teacher before I started really doing just life coaching. So I started putting these pieces together. I was working with the women who were coming to me with anxiety issues, and then they started telling me that, oh, their periods are getting better too. Like I remember my first client, the first client who told me that she got her period again after 3 years.
Wow.
Wow.
I'm nodding like a bobblehead, like everything that you're saying. I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Like all the Reddit holes I've been down, all the books that I've read, all the conversations I've had with my mom. You're just like, you are like divinely sent to my life right now.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet to say. I do believe we are here for a reason, sharing this message because there's so many women dealing with the same thing right now, right? Like coming off of birth control or like thinking that they should and just not really knowing what to do next. And there's a ton of resources out there. There are many women who've been researching this for decades with really great books and programs. But when it comes down to where you want to start, it's really just about tuning in to where you are now, like just noticing how you're feeling without judgment. And so you can set the standard for or set the playing field for where you want to go next. And if that means reading some books or going to go work with a program or working with a coach like me, whatever that is, it's all good. Just taking a step in the next best feeling direction is all you have to do.
Yeah. So this is just amazing for me because I went off of birth control in 2016 after 15 years of being on it in order to try to get pregnant with our son. Maybe it was even 2015, but I had a terrible syndrome, whatever it was called, of coming off of it. And I had gone on birth control after maybe my second cycle ever in high school. And they were really far apart then. And young bodies, that's pretty typical. You don't necessarily just get your period and then all of a sudden it's a 28-day cycle, often like based on hormones and your body figuring itself out, that it can be longer cycles at first. And because they were longer and they were heavy and I had acne, the doctor, the pediatrician is just like, okay, put her on birth control, it'll help with the acne and it'll help with the hormones and your cramping and all of that. So for 15 years, that was my life. I just took my pill every day. And then as I was coming off of it, actually feeling my hormones and my cycle not being regular and not being able to figure out how to get pregnant while I was weaning off of this drug that had been in my body for 15 years was really a really excruciating process for me. And I had a doctor try to tell me that I had PCOS because of it, because my body had never been given the chance to regulate itself and find its cycle. So after all of that work, I told my husband 2 kids later, I'm never going on birth control again. I didn't even want the IUD, no IUD with hormones in it, no IUD really. I mean, there was no option for me anymore, aside from knowing my body and figuring out how to move through my cycle and actually use it to my advantage. And I use it in work too. I don't know if you do any work around that, like using your cycle as like, week 1, that's when you start preparing new projects. 2 and 3, that's when you're like, more social and all of that stuff. I'm sure you're digging into that has been like a whole progression of all these things that I've been learning over the past 5 years. And I feel like we're fed this, like, women, especially since now we can get it for free, just take the pill. Men don't really have much responsibility around that. Typically, I do see a big wave of men getting vasectomies now, which I'm, husbands, which I am so for. But the onus has been on women, and then we're like, we're not properly educated around it. And I just think that this work that you're doing is so important and powerful. And one thing I just want to mention before we ask some more questions about it all is the vaccine stuff. I knew that it would mess up my cycle, and I was really precious about that, given my history and how I had worked so hard to regulate my hormones myself and gone through all these paths of really advocating for myself, treating myself, like doing my own research to get to a point where I was very in tune with my body. My mom was actually the one who taught me about the vaccine because she somehow saw a tweet from Dr. Kate Clancy, who was running a study about women and their menstrual cycles after getting the COVID vaccine. And it was something that she's happened to be a scientist and had mentioned to a friend, like, oh, it messed up my cycle. And then she would ask more people. And my mom got hers, and it gave her, she's way postmenopausal, and it gave her breakthrough bleeding to the point where she thought she was having a period after 10 years of not having a period, and had to go in and get all these tests and like an endoscopy or whatever it's called. And all the doctors blew her off and told her, it might be some other disease, when really she's like, no, I know it's the vaccine. Here's some studies. So I think your work is so important because it helps women understand their bodies and go out and advocate for themselves, and not just take that, no, it's this, or the blow off of like, here, just take the birth control pill. Even my midwives, after having babies, they were like, what are you doing for birth control? And I was like, abstinence until further notice, I guess, because I'm
Yeah,
not doing anything hormonally.
yeah, that's the thing, is like we're not taught that we can only get pregnant under a very short window of days. I think it's like 6 days for some women, perhaps 8. But just like, if you're not quite sure when you're ovulating. But if you're being careful or as much as you want and knowing you have options, I feel like we shouldn't need to take anything for birth control. So I think it's about
Yeah,
knowing
I
your
agree.
body. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Like being your own advocate and knowing, like, nope, that doesn't feel good for me, even though that is good for someone else. Like that's the thing with diet trends and all these like wellness trends, is we think that like one thing is supposed to work for everyone, but that's just not the case. Like we're all unique individuals, and it's so important for all of us to tune into our own wellness, what makes us feel good, and not feel pressured by anyone else, especially the media, to make choices for us.
Mm-hmm. I would imagine that in your work, one of the outputs that you're seeing is just a huge increase in confidence.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's a big one, is just like women knowing that, oh, when I eat that, I feel good, and when I do this, I won't feel, PMS symptoms, or at least not that crazy of PMS symptoms. Just giving women these small tools to empower themselves to make choices for their own wellness has been just so profoundly beautiful and changing as a professional.
Could you hypothetically walk us through like a case study of somebody who's coming to you and being like, here's a few things in my life that I want to work on? Like, what would your process look like with her?
Yeah, so it depends on whether they're coming for anxiety or for menstrual imbalances. Because usually the two I can help with similar things, but it really, so it's about what they're trying to focus on. But for example, a woman that I worked with who came to me with anxiety problems, she also had menstrual illness or menstrual imbalances. And honestly, it's probably the case for everyone. Just I don't want to overgeneralize here, but for most women, if they're having problems with anxiety, they're probably also having an imbalanced menstrual cycle. And so, with what helped for her was learning to eat differently depending on where her hormone cycle is. So, in the first two phases, you can eat less because your metabolism is slower, and then when it's in the second two, you can eat more, or you want to eat more because your metabolism is faster. So just giving yourself permission to eat differently depending on the part of your phase really helped her, because she was also dealing with this kind of needing to eat the same way as her husband. And that just wasn't working for her, right? She was recently married, and she was like, I just don't get it. Like we eat the same way, but just I don't feel good. And like, well, are you eating more when you're on your period? And she was like, no, why should I need to do that? And that's when we dove into that a little bit more. And that's what really helped. That was like the first thing that made her feel better, from like a menstrual perspective and a mental health perspective, was just that shift in eating for her wellness and not letting it or not needing it to match her husband's.
That's seriously so important. Like, you know, as a woman that's married or, has kids, like you want to cook one meal and like you all eat the same
Yeah.
thing, and that it's just what you do. So that's important to recognize that, like, you are doing something different. Or I would have never thought about that ever.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we're just not really taught. It's not like you're having cravings because you're on your period, it's because your body needs more food right now.
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always went with like the different types of things that my body is craving and really listening to my body of like what foods it wants
Mhm.
during those times, but not the more or less thing. I didn't even realize that at all. That's cool.
I just thought that I want ice cream.
Yeah, I mean, things like comfort foods that can be because of the mood shift too, not because you actually need something nutritionally. But things like chocolate, for example, that's usually an indicator of needing more magnesium. So it's important to make sure that you are supplementing and having or taking vitamins and multi like minerals and things like that, and oils especially, because nowadays from food, even if you're eating clean organic food all the time, you just still won't be getting all of the nutrients that you need to support a healthy and balanced menstrual cycle. That's why I believe supplementing is really important, and doing something called seed cycling. So seed cycling is something that I have all of my clients at least try, even if they aren't coming to me for menstrual imbalances, because just I've seen the effect so soon within one cycle, 4 weeks, sometimes 6 weeks. You can already feel that the PMS not being as strong, like the cramps not being as bad, the mood swings not being as prevalent. So seed cycling, I highly recommend that. And what that looks like is that it's taking pumpkin seed or a tablespoon of pumpkin seed and flax seed in the first 2 cycles. So right after you end your period, you start taking pumpkin seed and flax seed, 1 tablespoon each day until you ovulate. So that's roughly around day 14. And then you switch to sunflower seed and sesame seed, both tablespoon each day for the remaining 2 or so weeks of your cycle. And that helps to make sure that you aren't to balance your estrogen levels. So some of the lignans in flaxseed and sesame seed, those bind excess estrogen, and that is what is often causes like heavy PMS symptoms, is having an excess of estrogen. And it also helps to make sure that you have high enough zinc levels and to keep your progesterones from dipping too low too. Because if you feel more mood swings around your luteal cycle, that is often an indicator of low progesterone levels, which is the hormone, the chill hormone that
That's
makes you
me.
feel. Yeah, I think it's a lot of us, to be honest. It's probably a mixture of both high estrogen, low progesterone that makes us just feel all over the place. And seed cycling really helps to bring that back to balance.
And these are like the actual seeds. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a resource that we can link on your show notes, though? Like, that you can talk, or like a PDF that you talk about this, or like a link to where to buy the seed cycle things? I know you follow a specific.
Definitely. I can share the product I used most recently. It's this wonderful company called Moon Seed Cycling Co., and they make a blend for you, where they also grind the flaxseed and the sesame seed, because that's one thing that needs to happen, because your body doesn't break down flaxseed on itself. You need to grind it first, and if you want to take that work out of it, you can just buy a pre-blended one. And this company is a great one, so I'll share that link for sure.
I was so excited to talk about the seed cycle, because I know we have chatted about that a lot. So
Yeah.
um,
Yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
yeah, I totally want to do it. So
And it's so easy. It's the easiest one.
do you have like a referral code?
Yeah, Lunar 10 for 10% off.
Are you with this case study that you mentioned? She's working on her anxiety, and is she doing yoga? Is she doing the seed cycling?
So
You said everybody does.
she wasn't doing yoga actively as a part of balancing her physical and mental health, but for because she just had a different like routine of movement. She was more into doing high intensity. So for her, the shift happened when she started only doing high intensity and cardio in the first 2 phases, and then in the second two, when her body was asking for more rest, letting herself go for a long walk or take a bike ride or something chill like that, instead of staying with the high intensity. Because in your second 2 phases, your luteal and your menstrual, if you keep doing high intensity and cardio, your body's going to hold on to weight, and then you potentially you won't lose weight even though you're trying to do weight loss exercises. So yeah, highly recommend. Well, for her, that helped a lot. Yeah.
There's so many things that women just don't know that are so related to their cycles.
Mm-hmm.
And if you really tune into your body, like I've had to, from being off of birth control like 5 years now, I really feel those things. Like if I'm honest with myself of like, oh, am I feeling up to cardio today? It's more in yoga and rest. And I've really been trying to like eat that, when you're on your period, do some earthing,
Mm-hmm.
get closer to nature. I like want to be away from every single person and just like have bare feet on the ground. My husband's like, you're such a like weirdo, but he doesn't understand because he has a 24-hour cycle.
Right. Yeah, men don't
So
get
why
it.
would he?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think they also need to go outside, do some grounding, just not in the same way that I think it's a part of us as cyclical creatures, as women, that we need to be well.
Noemi, can you also touch about your Reiki? You are a Reiki master also, right?
Yes, yes, yes. So I am a Reiki practitioner. I do that as a part of, it's really more, at least I've been doing group Reiki for a little over a year now on Monday mornings for my membership. I do occasional one on ones, but right now my real focus has been tuning into the collective energy of my membership, of our group together, and then drawing a card and really channeling a message through that for us as a community. Because I think community is something that we took for granted for such a long time when we were out and about in the world. And as the pandemic hit, it became harder to keep that community when we weren't seeing each other in person. So something that I kind of put together to help keep that community energy alive was the live classes. So when I teach yoga and EFT tapping, and also when I channel Reiki for the group, because it's so refreshing. It feels to tune in and for everyone to be on the same page and to set our week up together. So from those Monday morning group Reiki sessions, that is where we commune, we connect, and then we can go out and create or keep amplifying that message that came through Monday mornings through Reiki.
You do all of the things that I'm obsessed with.
Well, you should join my membership.
She does.
I know. I'm like, membership? What do I need to do?
It's great. I find it's a really good way to set the week too. I've been in her membership for,
Yeah, you have.
probably since the beginning, right?
Yes, yes, you have.
And it's really good, even because even if you don't have to do anything specific, you just have to like allow yourself to receive, and then it's a really good way to start Monday. So I really encourage it.
Yes, thank you. That's the lovely thing about Reiki is it's energy healing, and it's something that really you can receive through any practitioner. The only thing that really changes is just the essence of it. So I had a client a couple weeks ago who I worked with for the first time, and she was like, "Wow, your energy is so different than the woman that she used to work with," and it really like if you're looking for Reiki or energy healing, if you're looking to receive that kind of, vibe from a practitioner, it's really helpful to tune or to check what their vibe is. Because it's not that like all Reiki energy is the same, even though it's coming from the same source, it is filtered through that practitioner. And so if you want that calm or like a chill vibe of someone like me, or if you want kind of more like a powerful, like intense, like sexual energy from like a different practitioner, then you would go with Melissa Hetu or someone like that. So Reiki is really powerful and a really easy way to just fuel yourself, to fill your own cup through the energy provided by another practitioner.
How often do you get Reiki, Whitney?
I don't.
Yeah, you do.
Uh-uh.
But like Calliope does it on us.
She does it over like um over the internet right now though.
Oh yeah, I've never had an in-person Reiki session ever.
Oh, yeah, I don't really feel it from like, virtually, but I did it once in person, and even then I didn't have a huge response. Actually, when I did my virtual session with Mary, and it wasn't exactly Reiki, she was doing something through the screen, and I talked about how I felt warmth in the light, like in my heart chakra that she was channeling to the point where I like opened my eye, like, is this like I thought she was shining a light on me, like through her screen, and that it was like a very literal light. But that was the only time I've really felt it. I need to go more in depth, and I think I need it in person. I don't think virtually really works for me.
So Noemi and I used to do one-on-one Reiki. That was quite a while ago, but I remember specifically like when we would schedule it and you would tell me, like it was always distance, but like I literally have felt times where I just like felt this like huge release in my chest, or like I would just get frustrated and start crying, and I'd like text her and be like, "What the hell did you just do?" Like it's so cool. Like just well, I also feel like we have a very deep connection too, because she's known me my whole life. So I think maybe that's helpful, or I don't know. I can't speak to it because I'm not an expert, but I think that you are very powerful, and I appreciate it.
Aw, thank you, Emily. You're very sweet. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot more I could just keep like talking about Reiki, but I'd love to hear questions if you have any before I just go into the woo of it, or we can also talk about something else.
Yeah, I'm curious how you even do it virtually. I mean, when Marianne did it, she had like this body chart and she put crystals on each one. And I don't know that it was Reiki, but that way made it a little bit more tangible for me because I knew that she was putting crystals on like different parts of the body and I could see it. Whereas, like, if I'm just hearing, or if you were talking to me over a camera, then I could understand that. But like just reading a Reiki um, channeled session, I don't know that that resonates as much with me.
Yeah, I mean it's different for everyone. Yeah, just go with what vibes with you, right? Like if it's not something that's calling you, then maybe it's not your jam, and that's totally fine. Yeah, I mean, I know when I do it virtually, I have a prop that I use as to substitute their body. And if it is happening on the go, then sometimes I use my leg. I use my right thigh to substitute their body, and then I put my hands where I would be putting them in person. Um, and sometimes using crystals, it really just depends on what the person is looking for. So if they're looking to be, or if they're looking for a specific kind of ailment to be treated, or if they're looking more just to check in with what's going on. So like for example, a chakra reading to tell people like, oh, there might be some blockage here, there's something going on, I see some kind of shadow, that kind of thing. That would look a little bit different than if you're looking to receive healing for some kind of area.
How do you see somebody's chakras?
So for me, it's about a feeling. I usually map their energy onto my own. Now to like, oh, I feel a blockage here, there, or you know.
You've always been receptive and intuitive. Like I remember literally 10 years ago, maybe even longer, we were like, I just see people as colors. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about? And you're like, yeah, you're blue or whatever. I'm like, what? Like I was so confused because I wasn't into spiritual, but like that was you. Like channel, like you can read people and you always have been able to, I feel like.
You know, I think I have been too. I just, for the longest time, I thought it was just pretend or just like playing with woo and magic and stuff like that. Because I grew up in a very religious household, but I was always spiritual and very much interested in the woo. So when I let go of the religious side of it, like the indoctrinated, God telling me what to do kind of thing, and focused in on the possibility of spirit, that was when I realized that what I was seeing about people, like whether that was their color or some kind of energy, like that was very real. I just didn't understand it growing up. And I wish I could have leaned into that more as a kid, because I'm sure I could see much more clearly now, because like the world really gets in the way of limiting our kind of spiritual powers because we think that they're not real just because we can't see it.
Yeah. So what do you see on us right now then?
I know with Emily, it's been changing since, she's been on this path as an entrepreneur. She was definitely blue for the longest time because she has such a clear voice. Like I feel like she's always just been in her authentic truth. That's what that blue has meant to me. But now it feels like it's shifting into like a darker green. And I wonder, I'm not sure why, but I'm definitely feeling that that's right because I'm getting the goosebumps. Um, just feels like she's more
Hmm.
grounded and rooted now.
Yeah.
I sense that about her.
Yeah.
What color is Whitney?
Okay, let me think about this for a moment because through the screen it feels different.
I'm wearing brown. I hope I'm not brown.
No, you feel more like an orange and a bright yellow. You feel very confident to me. Like you
I'm a
know who
Leo,
you are.
born in the year.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
year of the tiger, yeah.
all right. That makes a lot of sense.
What is
She's
orange?
Orange is often the sacral chakra, so the second one that is related to harmony and sensuality. But the
Mm.
way I'm seeing it is like it's very much connected between your third chakra, your solar plexus, and your sacral chakra. So that's why it's this orange yellow, which to me feels like a very confident, in her power energy.
Love that. Calliope sent me the leadership card yesterday.
that is how I perceive Whitney as well. Whitney is like who I aspire to be. Not like specifically who, but I admire your confidence so much. It's wild how much I admire
And
you.
it's funny to me that people say that because I say the same about my husband, like that we both, have always been very strong in who we are, not very easily swayed by other people's opinions. But because I've been doing so much work recently around like deconditioning and learning about just all these things that I've absorbed into my body and not known, I don't know that it's affected my confidence, but it's kind of muddied my brain a little bit. And so I'm feeling like I'm finally coming back into like, okay, I know who I am even more now, and I'm like more educated. And same with all the period stuff. Like it can be really mind blowing. And especially like for a while, I was getting a lot of cards on spiritual awakening that I kept having all these spiritual awakenings along the way, and like my relationship with spirituality, religion, God, so much has shifted over the past year. And I firmly believe that people like you doing this important work is so important for the rest of us who, you think you're walking through life with your eyes wide open and you're not, or you may not be. I always thought like, okay, I'm open minded. I have my certain beliefs, but there's just so much that I've learned over the past year and a half that's made me better and like more confident, more grounded, and made me question a lot too.
Yeah, there's definitely an awakening happening right now with women like you going through this deconditioning of understanding or coming back to that idea of self before the world got in the way, right? Before we were told that we're
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be a certain way, or that bleeding is gross, or that sexuality is shameful. So it's a really exciting time, and I love that there's this resurgence of teaching one another, of pulling away from that like corporate ladder of the way that things were, that they're supposed to be, that we are shown in the media, and instead deciding what we want to do as individuals, and being able to like look at someone who's done it before and go and learn from them, like this virtual like social media style like on demand learning, or working with a coach one on one. I feel like this is so empowering, and I'm so excited to see you doing this, both of you doing this, and just this entire community of women raising each other up. I love it.
It is pretty amazing. I bet you there's a direct correlation of people like us who are obsessed with Harry Potter growing up and like open to the woo later on in life. Like Noemi and I used to spend hours like running around her apartment parking lot like with sticks pretending they were wands. Like we were intense Harry Potter freaks. Like
I wasn't a Potterhead at that level, but I was the first in line
yeah,
for every book
yeah, and movies
and read
and
it
like
within a day.
mm-hmm. Yeah, we were too.
I didn't do the movies really.
Oh, oh,
Much more about the books. I appreciated that J.K. Rowling was so involved and it did look the same as it did in my head. But I was the first one in my middle school to read the book because I helped out at the library. And so I was like, what is this? And then every time a new one came out, we were at Costco getting it like that day. But
Yeah.
I think that that was actually like as we were interrupting each other because we just have all these questions and same brain. That's what I was going to ask about you guys of like your relationship together and how you both feel about like coming together at this important time in your life, like thinking of yourself as this kid reading Harry Potter together, and now look at you like fully embracing, you know, this spirituality movement of women really getting to know themselves and our collective power. I think that's so cool.
I mean, personally, I would have never ever like thought that this is how we would be right now. Like I mentioned before we jumped on the call, like we met in fourth grade. We were 9 years old. Our teacher actually read us Harry Potter, like during read aloud. So that's how we like Harry Potter was in what 11, and we were also 9. So like he was like the same age as us, and we grew up with Harry Potter. So like that was I won't say the foundation of our relationship because it wasn't, but like we enjoyed that together, and um we maintained our friendship. But then you moved to Hungary. How old were you when you moved back to Hungary?
11.
11. Yeah, so you moved back to Hungary quickly, and then I don't think we connected again until we kept in touch on email for a few years, I think. Or zegabeg@hotmail.com. um
Yeah.
and then yeah, and then we lost touch, and then I think I emailed you in high school or something.
Yeah. Maybe when Facebook
Something.
got
I'm like, do
passed.
you remember me? And you're like, oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah. So we connected, and then you visited, and then we all met up, and
Yeah.
yeah. So it's been pretty consistent since you came to visit Washington that one time when we were 19, 20, early.
I think we were
I don't know.
21 because we went to a
I don't know.
bar. Yeah.
You we did go to
Um,
a party. Ooh, that was a fun
we
night.
went to a
Okay. Yes.
yeah.
We did go to a bar. We must have been 21. Yes. But ever since then, our relationship has been like we have lived in different states. We always make
Mhm.
an effort to see each other when we're in each other's states. Like I was in San Francisco on a work trip and we hung out, and um, you were in my wedding, like did the readings for my wedding, and but like to your point when you like how we were both connected over this, I did not see that. And I did not see my own entrepreneurship coming, but she was always so supportive of it. And we try to do monthly Zoom meetups where we catch up and be really intentional about like spending time together because, you know, it's it's hard to keep in contact like sporadically sometimes. So we were really intentional about meeting, and I canceled our meeting yesterday just so we have more to talk about today. uh, um, but I don't know. I watched her go through this journey. We watched each other go through the journey. Like I would keep her up to date on my business, and she was always so supportive. And she's like, I want to do something too. And I we supported each other really through like her finding what she wanted to do and like asking me for advice, and then I'd ask her for advice. And it's just been this really beautiful like blossoming thing that we're kind of doing to like on this journey together. And I really am so thankful that we have each other and to like, ask questions of or like run something past you like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing for my membership, or hey, what do you think my offering should be? Like, does this resonate XYZ? Like we run those things past each other, and it's pretty cool. And also it's really nice to have somebody that you can connect in such a level. Like I can tell her like, oh, JD is getting married, and I don't have to do any like more explanation because she's known me my whole life. Like um
Hmm.
it's it's very cool. And this is a friendship that like I mean it's been our whole life. So
Yeah.
that's really
Soul
special to me.
connection.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it definitely is a soul connection. And I didn't really know that until like recently. Like we were totally meant to be in each other's lives. It's a soul contract. So I'm thankful that I have you in my life.
Oh, I'm so thankful for you too, Emily. This has been, I think, the easiest relationship Because with you, like anytime we
Mm-hmm.
pop back into each other's lives, there's like you said, there's no need to explain. We just are. We're once again those 9-year-olds want to pick up some sticks and go run around in my complex area, just pretending, just having fun and playing, right? I think that's something that as adults we stop doing. And that I think with Emily, we never stopped. Like anytime we get together, it's always playful, it's always joyful. And maybe that's because that is Emily at her core, is this playful, like beautiful human being without judgment, and who just makes it so easy to be vulnerable without ever feeling like I need to hide anything from you. So thank you for being in my life, Emily. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you too. And also, I can't not mention our fifth grade teacher, like totally changed my life. And I don't know, I can't speak for you, Noemi, but like he taught us foundations that I still use today, like how to treat people and like how to be curious about things and like how to advocate for yourself. And it just like that is something that has stuck with me my whole life, and that's something we experienced together. And I'm not sure if that has had an impact on our relationship or not, but like I think it did for sure. Mr. Rubin, you the best.
Yeah, Mr. Rubin, happy birthday. It was his birthday yesterday, October 6th.
Oh,
I do think his influence in our lives meant a lot because we talked about stuff that was really real for fifth and sixth graders. At the time, the election, I don't know, the 9/11 or happened then when we were in his class. So having, like
inclusion,
got to,
like
yeah,
yeah.
that exactly. Like really getting
Hmm.
to talk about those real things as kids before our minds, had kind of those like programs already set in them, I think really helped us become more responsible and intentional human beings.
Completely agree.
That is so cool.
He's great.
And it's funny you say that, how easy it is with you two. Like, that's how I define all of my best relationships, is just that sense of ease and feeling completely comfortable just sitting in silence next to each other. Like, I just visited my best friend and she moved across the country, and just sitting next to her and not speaking is one of my most comfortable places in the world.
Absolutely.
So, Noemi, what is your coffee order? Do you
Ooh.
drink coffee?
No, I don't. I Mine would be mushroom coffee. So like a mix of adaptogenic mushrooms like reishi, chaga, cordyceps, turkey tail, and lion's mane. That with some like cacao. That would be my coffee order.
How do you feel about Four Sigmatic then?
I like Four Sigmatic. It's a really great in between if you still want the caffeine but aren't quite, or and want the mushrooms, so you want both. It's a really good stepping stone. Like I definitely used it while I was coming off of caffeine.
Mm. And do you like buy these mushrooms? Like, are they already ready to brew, or do
No,
you have to
it's
like
just
do
it's just a
some?
powder. It's just like Four Sigmatic, just without the caffeine.
Got it. Okay, another thing for me to look into. What is your first happy memory?
Ooh, first happy memory. I remember being after we moved to the States when I was 4, and we were in a big house, and before that we were in an apartment building. So we were in a bigger house, and I remember like getting to play hide and seek and hiding in a bunch of different places, and that was really satisfying as a 4-year-old.
Oh, so cute.
Yeah, that's so funny. My first memory is about the same age, where it's just like a little moment, a couple little snapshots that I'm like, these are so cool that they're like seared into my brain, very much around that age. What clothing item would you wear every day if you could?
I have a pair of sweatpants right now that I really love because they've got nice big pockets and they're very soft, and it's getting cold here. So this pair of sweatpants from Stacy. Stacy's listening to this. Love you, girl.
Speaking my language. My highest self wears a very expensive sweatsuit.
Nice.
It's always got to be comfortable.
Yeah.
What's the best business purchase you've made in the last 6 months for under $100? And you can cheat if you need to.
No, that's all right. I got a new whiteboard that is really nice. I have it right next to my desk, and I put like my daily to-dos, because otherwise I'm writing lists everywhere, and just having it in one place has really up leveled my prioritization.
And the satisfaction of wiping it off probably is nice
Yeah.
too.
Check. Done. Yeah, feels really good.
I love that. And what's lighting you up lately?
I'm turning my one-on-one coaching program into an on-demand course. And that's been really satisfying because it feels like I can scale my business by turning that one-on-one course into a one-on-one program into a course, so I can share it with more people. So showing up as the spiritual teacher, the woman who teaches love and forgiveness, and turning that into a course for anxiety, that has been really heart soothing. Just, was like, as an entrepreneur, sometimes we worry about scaling, and now that I found the way to do that, that's been really lighting me up.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I think the world needs to be touched by you. So thank you for working on that and creating it for more people.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for saying that.
I know my mom will buy it. I'll tell her and she'll be like, okay. And then she'll send it to all her friends. So you'll have a lot of business from us.
Oh, I can't wait.
Well, thank you so much for being on here, Noemi. It's been really good to, catch up with you and have this conversation and introduce you to one of my other best friends. And I am so excited to share you with our network. Like, everybody needs to know you. You are such a caring and compassionate and loving soul. And I just feel like you have so much to teach people.
Oh, thank you, Emily. It was such a joy to be invited onto this podcast. It means so much that as women we get to celebrate each other and raise each other up. So thank you, Whitney. It was so nice to get to talk to you today. And I can't wait to see where we're all heading, because this is the beginning, ladies. Like, we are blowing up and it's happening. It's real. I feel it. And I love you both. Thank you. Thank you so much for holding space for me.
Thank you. Where can we find you?
I'm on Instagram. I am Noemi Sparks. Facebook, I have a group for mental health specifically. It's called the Natural Anxiety Relief Method. It's a private group, but everyone is welcome as long as you agree to our terms. And then I also have a website. I'm yogawithsparks.com, and that's where you can find most of what I'm working on.
Amazing. I'm going to it now.
Yay.
Great. So thank you guys for listening to the Coast Podcast. We hope you check out Noemi and love her as much as we do. And we're signing off for now. Bye.
This episode's music was provided by Sloan Best.
And editing provided by Kayla Shu.